Grace and peace. I'm Brian Musser, the Baptist Campus Minister at Drexel University, and this is Peace and Power Christian Fellowship, the peace of Jesus Christ to change our lives and the power of the Holy Spirit to change our world. We are continuing our series in the book of Genesis 1 through 11, entitled The Meaning of Creation, kind of looking at where does humanity belong. This is the third lesson, and we're going to look at where are we. We're going to dive specifically into the creation. Before we get into some of the meaning and ideas of that, we're going to look at how the text is organized. And some meaning and ideas will come from the organization. And the text is very interesting in how it's detailed and thought through with what's going on here. So we find the introduction. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and void. Those two words are very significant words for the rest of the chapter. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So that formless and empty, formless and void, formless and empty, are kind of how the next several days are going to be organized. Days 1, 2, 3 are bringing form or order and structure out of the formlessness. And then days 4, 5, and 6 fill the emptiness that was formed. So we'll see that moving forward. So it kind of like Genesis 1, 3 through 25, there's a forming and filling. On days 1 through 3, God forms a part of the creation, and then days 4 through 6, God fills that part of creation. Day 1 is forming, day 4 is filling what was formed on day 1, day 2 is forming, day 5 is filling what was formed on day 2, day 3 is forming, and day 6 is filling what was formed on day 3. So there's a whole lot of structure just in that, using the words formless and empty to kind of highlight what's going on. So day 1, Genesis 1, 3 through 5. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. So we see in day 1, God forms the day and night by separating them from each other. Then we see going into day 4. So I'm taking this a little out of order just to show this sort of organization going on here. Day 4, so the day and night were formed by separating them, and then now they're filled with the sun, moon, and stars. And God said, let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth. And it was so. God made 2 great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God said that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the 4th day. So this idea, the 4th day fills what was created or what was formed on the first day. And this pattern repeats. Day 2. And God said, let there be a vault between the waters that separated water from water. God made the vault and separated the water under the vault and from the water above. And it was so. God called the vault sky. There was evening and there was morning the 2nd day. God forms the sky and the sea by separating them from each other too. And we see that day 1, day 2, there was a lot of separation, that idea of just making distinctions between 2 things, and God forms that, the sky and the sea, in day 2. So obviously day 5, we would expect God to fill the sky and the sea, and that's what we see. And God said, let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with water, with which the water teems, and that moves about in it according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God said that it was good. God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water and the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. So we see God formed the sky and the sea. Now God fills the sky and the sea with birds and fish. And finally, the last set of days, day 3, Genesis 1:9 through 13. And God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let the dry ground appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let the land produce seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds. And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plant-bearing seed according to their kinds, and tree-bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening and there was morning, the third day. So we form the dry land by gathering the seeds into one place, and the land produces vegetation. So that's a little bit different because of that piece there about the plant life. But we see that God forms the dry land by collecting the seas and differentiating between the seas and the land, and that is day 3, forming the land. So obviously day 6, if it follows the pattern, will fill the dry land. And God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind. And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. So God fills the land with animals and humans. And there's a lot more to day 6 with the creation of humanity, and we'll look at that in a subsequent lesson, specifically concentrating. Next lesson, we'll specifically concentrate on what it means for humanity to be created by God and all the details of that. And that kind of parallels day 3 with the creation of the plant life. Like, if we were going to break that up into paragraphs, the day 3 has 2 paragraphs, and day 6 also has 2 ideas, with this second one being the creation of humanity in day 6, and the second one being creation of plants in day 3. But all through day 1 forms something, day 3 and the day 4 fills that something that was formed, day 2 forms something else, day 5 fills what was formed on day 2, day 3 forms something, day 6 fills that. So that's kind of the structure of these verses throughout the text. So that formless and empty is kind of a hint, an organizing structure for us to see. Then we'll just read this to finish off the chapter. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image and our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the seas and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves along the ground. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food, and to all the beasts of the air, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it. I give you every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw all that he has made, and it was very good. There was evening and there was morning, the 6th day. And then kind of the passage had the introduction, which was sort of the first 2 verses, also has a conclusion that that ends and reiterates some of the things found in the introduction. Thus the heavens and the earth, a line from the first sentence, were completed in all their vast array. By the 7th day God had finished the work he had been doing, so that the 7th day he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the 7th day, made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. So this idea, so we see in this conclusion, it echoes with all 3 of those ideas: heavens and the earth, God, and creation. Like, those words are repeated in the conclusion that were also found up in the introduction. And it's kind of like an interesting way that makes it look like Genesis 1:1 through Genesis 2:3 are one unit, and this forms what's called an inclusio, when the ending echoes the beginning and creates this idea that this is one sort of piece of material for us to look at as a whole. But so that's the organization of the first chapter, focusing on these days and how the first three of the days are forming a piece of the creation, and the last three of the days are filling that piece of creation. If you saw throughout the passage, I highlighted all the verbs that have God attached to it, something God does. We'll talk about that in a later lesson. And then I underlined a lot of other ideas that were going on there that will come out in a subsequent lesson as well. So there was a little bit of detail that I added to this reference that we'll pick back up in lessons. Not lessons, but videos 2 and 3 of this lesson 3. So some discussion questions. What messages do you think the author was trying to convey by structuring Genesis 1:1 through 2:3 this way? There's a lot of structure there. There's intentional structure. What do you think this structure wants us to hear? What would be some pros and cons if the Bible creation story completely agreed with our modern scientific thinking about the origins of the earth? I would love to hear what you would find out in what you would think be the pros and the cons if it completely agreed with what science told us was true right now. Also, after at least 3,500 years in print, why do people still find the Genesis creation account meaningful? So this story has been passed on throughout probably about 3,500 years, and we still read and talk about it. As we looked at last week, there's a lot of other competing creation myths at that time that we don't find meaningful, that we don't still talk about. You probably don't know or study or hear about or even think about the Enuma Elish very much at all, or the Egyptian creation account. Why is this one, the Hebrew creation account, still something we talk about, discuss, and find meaning and value in it? So those are some questions I would love to hear from you, and drop down in the comment section and give me any thoughts, ideas you have about those questions for discussion. I would love to engage you around those things. As always, there are 3 ways to join this conversation. The first way is in person Sunday nights at 5 p.m. in the JEMIC. Then second one's live Monday at night, 7 p.m. via Zoom. That link is in the description below. And then third way is these weekly wrap-ups on YouTube and or WordPress. I'm all over the social media: Instagram, TikTok, WordPress, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Like, subscribe, follow. I enjoy having these conversations there as well. You can direct message me on some of those apps, and I will respond, especially if it's relating to the video content for these lessons. Enjoy this conversation. Hope it continues real soon.